I should show you the project first a little bit, and so you get an idea of what we're doing, and then when we do the software piece, it'll make a little more sense to you. So I thought that just might be a better way to go. So I'm not going to show you the whole assembly PowerPoint tonight in the beginning. I will go through it step by step slowly after we do the software section. But again, I just wanted to show you real quickly what things were going to look like. So this is what the finished block is going to look like. And you can see that it's composed of a central diamond, and then there are 4 triangles on the outside of that diamond to make a diamond and square block. And also there's an embellishment or quilting stitch over the top. That's in the shape of that flowery circle kind of pattern. So this is what the finished block is going to look like. The next slide here is going to talk about the materials. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to hooping up your batting and all the other important notes. But I wanted to go right here and show you that we're first going to stitch out a placement line on the batting. And that's the first thing we're going to create in the software. So I wanted you to see what that looked like. The next step we're going to do is we're going to put the diamond fabric on the hoop inside that placement line. Next, we're going to come and put down our 2 triangles. We're going to do the upper left and the lower right triangle. And then we're going to stitch seam lines to hold those in place so we can then flip and fold it over like this. And we're going to go ahead and repeat that for the other side. And then we're going to come along and put the embellishment stitch on. So I'm going to end this right now, but I just wanted you to see, again, real quickly, kind of where we're headed, so as we go through the software, it makes more sense. And we're going to go straight into the software part now. And again, I just want to reiterate that we are going to go back and go through that whole PowerPoint slowly and step by step so you see the complete assembly. So don't worry, we'll come back to it. Now, when you open My Decorative Quilter, you're going to get this My Floriani Today screen. And you can see already here that this project is available for download. So we've gone ahead and jumped the gun on April just a little bit and gone ahead and put it up there for you now so you can download it. So when you are doing it later, and don't try to do it now while you're watching the webinar, but later when you open the software and you want to create this project, you would come here to the My Floriani Today screen, and you would just simply click on this April project window here, and that's going to bring up another window that says install the current month project. Now, if you haven't gotten last month's project or the month before that, you can come here and click install all projects. But I'm just going to show you what happens when you click install the current month project here. So you're going to click that. You're usually going to get some kind of a little warning right here from Windows asking you if it's okay to run or save this. You don't want to save it. What you want to do is you want to run this, and it's going to get a little security scan. Sometimes you'll get this window right here showing you that Windows isn't quite sure that you want to do this, because it could potentially be harmful if it wasn't us. But since it is us, you can go ahead and run this program. So you want to click on the Actions button here, and you want to click Run Anyway. Now, what comes up in these windows that I'm showing you will be dependent upon the version of Windows that you're running. I happen to be running Windows 7 on this particular computer, so it might look a little different if you're running Vista or XP or Windows 8, but the same kinds of things will be there. So it's again going to come up here and ask to make sure it's okay to run it. You want to click Yes, and then you're going to click OK to install the current month project. And it installs very, very quickly. It just went and installed right there just like that. And if you want to find out where we put it, you can later click this link right here, Where Are My Free Projects? And I will show you that in just a second here, where it went exactly, and we'll get to that when we save the file. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this window now. And the first thing you're going to do when you want to start this project is you're going to come down here and you're going to click Create a New Design. Now you can do that right from here, or if this window isn't open, you can do it up here with this icon up here in the corner, the Create New Design icon. So I'm just going to click down here and do that. It's going to open up a blank window, and you can see that now on my screen I do not have the grid showing. If you prefer to work with the grid, certainly you can have it turned on, but I prefer, when I'm working mainly with quilt blocks, not to have that grid on. So the very, very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through our basic settings in the software to make sure we're all on the same page and it's set up correctly so that when you follow along with the steps that it will all work the way we expect it to. And also I want to mention that I'm going to be presenting this webinar tonight as if you are following along with the printed instructions. And again, those would be what you would download when you click on the project link that we just went through. I know that you're not going to be following along with them tonight, but later when you watch the recording of this webinar, you will be. And so I'm going to present it as if you're doing that, because I hope that you will be following along with the printed instructions when you watch this video. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up to our ruler bar here, and we're just going to right-click on it, and just to check that we are in inches mode. And you can see I've already got inches selected here. If you didn't, you would just click on it, and then it would be in inches mode. The next thing we're going to do is come up to our Tools menu. We're going to click that. We're going to drop down here to General Options, and we're going to click on the grid icon again over here. And we're going to make sure that our spacing on our grid is set to 0.5, and that's in the horizontal and the vertical. And we also at this time want to make sure that Snap to Grid is off. So if you're not set to 0.5 in the horizontal and vertical, you want to do that, and you want to also make sure Snap to Grid is off. Lastly, we're going to come down here to the digitizing icon just to double check that we are in Simple Draw mode. Now, Simple Draw mode is the way that the software comes, and most people never change it, but just a good idea to make sure you're in that mode so as you're following along with the steps that it all works the right way. And we're just going to click OK to make sure we apply those changes. So now we've got our environment all set up, and the first thing we're going to do is select a block to start working with. And the way we do that is with the Select Block icon up here. So you're going to come up here and you're going to click on that icon. It's going to bring up a whole menu of blocks, and remember we have about 2,200 built-in quilt blocks. We're just going to use the basic diamond and star block tonight. So you're going to click on Basic right here, and you're going to click on the diamond and square. Now, normally when you use My Decorative Quilter, you can change the size of the block as you bring it in right down here. But we're going to go ahead and leave it at 8 by 8 tonight, because that's the size of the block we're going to work with. And just click OK to bring in the block. Now we want to select this center diamond here, this diamond square block in the center. To do that, we're going to click off of it and then click back on just in the center. And now I've just got this center block created. And what we're going to do is we're going to create those stitch lines kind of outside here, those placement lines of where we're going to place the fabric. And the fabric needs to be bigger than the actual finished size, which is what kind of we're looking at here. So what we're going to do is we're going to resize this diamond to give us that kind of a seam allowance for the placement line out here. And we're going to do that once we've got the block selected. We're going to come over here to our Properties area. We're going to click on the Transform icon, and we're going to resize this to 8.75 inches. So the easy way to do that is just make sure your Maintain Aspect Ratio is checked right here. And all we have to do is change one of them. And I'm just going to change it to 8.75. And you can see that when I do that, the width and the height change together. And then click Apply to apply it. And now our block is bigger. You can see it out here. And you can see these little triangles out here that are poking out beyond. And we're going to use those as a reference point in the next step. So we're going to actually go ahead and create our placement line stitches right now. We're going to use Run Stitch to do them. To do that, you come up here to your Run Stitch icon, and just simply click on the run stitch icon. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create the outer lines of that stitching. We're going to use the point where this triangle intersects our bigger triangles as a place to put our line. Now, these are kind of gross placement lines. That nothing's going to be stitched with these except just as a guide to place the fabric. So absolute accuracy is not that important right here. But what you want to do is you want to position your cursor just inside the edge of the gray triangle and aligned right with where that crosses over. So I'm just going to left click right there, and I'm going to come up to the top here, and I am going to get in about the same area on the other triangle, and I'm going to right click again, and then I'm going to, left click, and then I'm going to right click to create that line of stitches right here. So I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around and repeat that procedure. Again, I'm going to left click right inside here. It sometimes doesn't take the click because of our presentation software. So I'm going to try one more time. There we go. And I'm going to come right back down here. And again, I'm going to click one more time, left click, and then right click to finish it up. And I'm going to just continue to repeat that procedure for all the sides. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to left click. I'm going to left click again, then right click. I'm going to left click right there, come back up here, and I'm going to left click and then right click. And that creates the first set of stitches that we're going to use for our placement line. Now we're going to create the actual seam lines that we're going to use to attach not only the big diamond but the triangles in place. And to do that, we're going to also use run stitches. But right now we're going to use a feature of the software that's very, very powerful for when you create artwork or when you want to get stitches in exactly the right place on existing artwork. And that is a feature called Snap to Grid. So in order to do that, we're going to come back up here to the Tools, and we're going to click General Options. And we're going to go to our grid settings one more time. And then we're going to now click Snap to Grid. Okay, now that Snap to Grid is checked, we're going to click OK to apply that. And now you're going to click on your run stitch, and we are going to create this set of stitches, but we're going to use a different color to differentiate it from the stitches that we just created. So we're going to come down here to our color palette. You're going to right click on color number 2, which for purposes of this webinar we're going to call red, but in fact the actual color is a deep pink, but it looks red, so we're going to call it red. Now one thing I want to point out is when you look at the printed instructions, you're going to see letters over here. Now you can't see them on the screen because they're not really in the software, but they're a guide to show you where to click first, second, third, and fourth. So there'll be a letter A up here, a letter B up here, a letter C over here, and finally a letter D down here. So we're going to start over here. It's going to go A, B, C, and D. So if you can just remember where those letters are for tonight's webinar, that'll be great. Again, when you're looking at the printed instructions, you'll actually see those. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our first seam line right here along this line of the diamond, or the long edge of the triangle actually. And we're just going to, because we have Snap to Grid on, all we need to do is get somewhere close in here in this point and left click. And you can see when I did that, it put the point exactly where we want it to be, right there, snap to that grid location. So we're going to start with point A. We're going to come up to point B. And again, you can see I don't have to get perfectly close to it, just close enough so you can see that it snaps to it. And I'm going to left click one more time, and then I'm going to right click to apply that line. So now I've got a line of stitches going up here. Now we're going to come down here. We're going to do point C to point D. So again, I'm just going to get close to the point there. I'm going to left click. I'm going to come down here, get close to that point down there, left click again, and then right click. Finally, we're going to continue on. We're going to do point D to point A. So I'm just going to get in here and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to come up. Oops, didn't take it. Hold on one second. Again, that's our presentation software being a little gremlin with us. So I'm going to left-click down there, come up here, left-click one more time, and then right-click to finish it. And lastly, we're going to create the stitches from point B down to point C. So I'm going to get up here in the corner. I'm going to click. I'm going to come down here, left-click, and then right-click to finish it. And that creates all of our tack-down lines or our seam lines. And the software defaults to put those in at a 3 millimeter stitch length, and you can see them right here. We want to make it about a 2.5 millimeter stitch length, and we're going to do that by applying it to all the objects at once. And I can click right here, and I know that they're all here. I've got them all selected. You can see the little diamond, so you can tell I've got all 4. But just to make sure, I'm going to go ahead over here, and I'm going to click on the plus icon to expand them all out. So you can see here's the 4 run stitches that we just created. And again, I'm going to select them all by clicking here. So they're all selected now. And I'm going to come up here to my stitch length and change it to 2.5 millimeters and click Apply. And now all of those run stitches are 2.5 millimeters. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come into all these run stitches, and we are going to change the colors on them. And the reason we're going to make each run stitch a different color is because when we get to the sew out, we want our machine to stop in between each color. And if we left them all the same color, the machine would just run around the whole diamond, and we wouldn't have a chance to take it out of the machine and put our fabric in place or flip the fabrics that had already been sewed. So again, we're going to just change the color of some of these in order to get the machine to stop. So we're going to click on the second one, which is color number 11. And you can see I've got that one selected right now. And we're just going to change that to green, which is the next color in our palette here. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to my color palette, and I'm going to right-click on green. And you see what happens when we did that. It separated this green out from the deep pink. So now that's another one. Now these guys are still deep pink, so we're going to go ahead and change those next. We're going to click on run stitch number 12 here, color sequence index number 12, and we're going to change it to color number 4, orange. We're going to do that by right-clicking on orange. And we're going to go ahead and do that with the very last one, color number 13. And guess what? We're going to change that one to color number 5, yellow. And we're going to do that by right-clicking on yellow. And that's all there is to it. We've got all of our basic lines set up now. And what we're going to do now is add our embellishment or our quilting stitches on the top of this. So we're going to do that by clicking on the embellishment icon, which is right here. So you're just going to click on that icon. And for this one, we're going to use the circles pattern. And we are going to expand that by clicking this little plus, because we have 2 different types of circles. For this one, we're going to use circles number 2. So we're going to click there. And we're going to use this one right here. It's just called Embellishments 18. And we're going to click that. And we're going to click OK to apply it to our design, he says. And it's not taking a click. There it goes. OK, and it didn't put it in the center. So I'm just going to quickly drag it over here into the center. And every other time I've done this, it's put it in the center, but I don't know why it didn't. But that's OK. It's really easy to reposition it. But you notice it's a little small. So we need to resize this so that it fits our block better. So we're going to come over here to our transform, and we're going to make this a full 8 inches. We want to make sure maintain aspect ratio is checked. We're going to set the top one to 8. The bottom one's at 7.91. It's just a little bit off because it's actually measuring the outline. You'll see that in a second. And I'm going to click Apply to make it bigger. And you can see out here, it looks like it's going right to the edge of the block. But what you're seeing out here is actually just an artwork outline. This would not stitch. We would use this if we were going to add stippling. We wanted to knock out the background around it, like we did with our trapunto design last month, but we're not going to do that with this design. So you can see that the actual stitching in here is nicely inside the block. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to delete the artwork that we do not need in the design. So we're going to come up here and we're going to select the first item. We're going to hold down the Control key, and remember to select multiple items. You want to select the first one, then hold down Control and click, and then we're going to scroll down here to Floriani Deep Moss, which is color number 1, and we know that's the artwork for the outline of the embellishment. So again, I'm going to hold down the Control key and click that. So now we've got those 3 artwork elements selected that we don't need anymore, and I'm going to right-click on them and click Delete to delete them. So now all of our artwork is gone, and you can see what the block is going to look like a little bit better. The last thing we need to do to this design before we save it is we need to resize it so that it will fit into an 8x8 or 200 millimeter by 200 millimeter hoop. Now, theoretically, you should be able to sew all the way out to 8 inches. In reality, most machines sew a little bit smaller than that because of the presser foot and other clearances and things. So what we're going to do is we're just going to play it safe, and we're going to resize the stitch area of this block down to 7.87 instead of 8. The way we're going to do that is we're going to come up here and we're going to select Edit, and we're going to select All. And you can also see here, here's the window shortcut, Control A. So either way you wanted to do this, either select All from this menu or Control A would work to select everything. So we're going to select everything. Again, we're going to come up here to our transform icon in our properties box, and again we're going to change it to 7.87. Maintain aspect ratio is still checked, so all I need to do is change one of them, and the other one changes automatically. Don't forget to click Apply to apply it, and now our block is the perfect size for fitting in that 200 millimeter by 200 millimeter hoop. The last thing you want to do is come up here and save it. So we're going to click our Save icon, and where we're going to save it is in our MDQ Projects folder. Now this folder gets automatically created when you load the projects, and this is in your Designs area that shows up in your library view or your design library over here. So to show you where that is, I'm going to navigate all the way up. So it's in C, and then it's in Floriani, it's in Designs, and then you want to find the folder that says MDQ Projects. Okay, they're right here. And then I've saved my practice one over here, and we're going to just save it now in our April folder. You won't have the April folder until you download the instructions, but I'm going to go ahead and click April. Here's April 2014, and we are going to call this Pieced and Quilted Block. And you can see that Windows is already trying to tell me I've already used some name like that. Oh, this is the PDF, so that's not right. So I'm going to say Save, and that's going to actually save it in our C2S format. So that C2S format is what you want to do every time you save a file, either in My Decorative Quilter or in Floriani Total Control Professional. You always want to get in the habit of saving that file in the C2S format. That retains all of the stitch information and all of the object information about everything we've done with the file. But in order to sew this out on your machine, we need to save it one more time in our machine format. So to do that, you come up here and click File. You're going to click Save As this time. And now instead of selecting the C2S format, we're going to come down here and select the machine format. Like, let me go ahead and select Baby Lock Brother PES version 9. And I'm trying to get it set. Click, there it goes. And click Save. And then that would go ahead and save it in something we can put on a stick, or however you send it to your machine, it would sew out. So that's the software discussion that we've done. That's the whole project, pretty simple to create. And we're going to move on now to take a look at how you actually put this thing together. And to do that, I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint here. And you've seen this intro slide, so I'm just going to skip past it. And again, this is what the sewn out block is going to look like. And I apologize, I can't move my, I'm moving my mouse, but you can't see the pointer. It's just the way this PowerPoint viewer works. So you can see up in all the corners, we've got one triangle piece of fabric, and then there's a center big diamond piece of fabric, along with our embellishment or quilting stitches over the top. So let's go over the materials that you're going to need to complete this project. And again, what we're talking about here in this particular screen is what you need for one block. Now, obviously, your quilt isn't going to be one block unless you're making a pot holder. So you want to multiply this times the amount of stuff that you would want for an entire quilt. And of course, you can choose whatever fabric you want. But you're going to need Floriani quilted soft bamboo cotton batting, or you can use Floriani embroidery batting. The choice of batting is up to you. You're going to need some Floriani embroidery perfection tape. You're going to need to be using a hoop that's at least 200 millimeters by 200 millimeters, or commonly known as an 8-inch hoop. You're also going to need Floriani embroidery or quilting thread for your top thread, and you want to choose a thread that either matches or contrasts with your quilt fabric, and again, the choice is up to you. You're going to need bobbin thread. Now, typically you'll want that bobbin thread to match the backing fabric, but again, if you want it to contrast, that's up to you. But the only thing that's going to show through on the back is those quilting stitches, so none of our seam lines or anything are going to show through. So again, the bobbin thread color choice is up to you, whether you want a contrasting or whether you want a matching color. And lastly, we're going to need some fabric. For the big center square diamond, you're going to need a 6-inch square piece of fabric. So you're going to cut it 6 inches on a side. You're going to need 2 5-inch squares, and once you cut those 5-inch squares, you're going to again cut them diagonally to create the 4 triangles that go on the corners. And then lastly, you're going to need a 9-inch square piece of fabric for the backing fabric. And again, what fabric color choices you choose, that's totally up to you for the quilt effect that you want to create. So we're going to get ready to embroider now. The first thing you want to do is take that piece of quilted soft batting or embroidery batting, and you're going to hoop it up and get it nice and tight. You're going to use a piece that's about 1 inch larger than your hoop on each side, so you can get it hooped really nice. We're not going to use any other stabilizer with this because we don't have very many stitches, and either the quilted soft bamboo cotton or the embroidery batting can support the stitches that we need for this quilt design. So we're not going to use any other stabilizer again for this. And then you're going to go ahead and load the hoop onto your machine and load the design into your machine. And then I just want to go over some important notes that apply to this. The most important thing is, in these directions, we're going to be referring to the different colors as we save them in the design. So remember, we went through and we chose a bunch of different colors. The main reason that those are there is to make the machine stop where we want, remember, but important thing to remember is that the color names in the file and what we chose in the software may or may not come up the same in your machine, but the actual color name doesn't matter that much. In fact, most of the time you're just going to use one thread color throughout. So you're just going to load whatever thread color you want on that machine, and then even though the machine is prompting you to change the colors, you just simply don't change it. Again, remember that the reason that we have those colors changes there is to make the machine stop so we can take the hoop out and apply various pieces of fabric and do our pressing and folding and flipping. Now, if you have a multi-needle machine, of course the machine isn't going to stop at each color automatically. It's going to want to choose a different color and go on stitching. That's the whole reason we have multi-needle machines. But you can get your multi-needle machine to stop. Most of them have something called a reserve stop command, so you'll want to insert those for each color where you want it to stop. And for this design, that's most or not all, if not all of them. And if you want to use the same thread color, again, in the multi-needle machine, you'll want to use your magic wand or similar control to assign the same color to every color change. and then it won't try to change colors on you. And by magic wand here, again, we mean the magic wand that's built into your machine, not the magic wand in the My Decorative Quilter software, even though we call it magic needle there. Okay, so those are some important things to remember about this as we go through. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stitch out color choice number 1, which again in your machine or in the software was called Deep Ocean. It's that dark blue color. We're going to stitch it out, but you can see here in the picture we've actually chosen an orange thread because that's what matches our fabric. So you're going to stitch out that placement line, and once it's done, you're going to stop the machine. You're going to remove the hoop from the machine, but every time we remove the hoop until the very end, remember you don't unhoop the design or the batting. You want to leave it in the hoop. Okay? So you're going to take it out of the machine. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that square piece of fabric for the diamond, and you're going to place it right side up, so right side away from the batting, within those placement lines. So you're going to place that fabric down so it's facing up. It should fit right inside the placement lines. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is you're going to place the upper left-hand corner triangle down. You're going to put the long side of the triangle basically along that edge of the fabric just inside the placement line. You don't want to be over the top of the placement line. It should just come up right to the edge of it so you can actually still see it just a little tiny bit. And you want to make sure that you place the fabric with the right side towards the diamond. So this time the right side is going to be facing down. So the right sides are together here. In this picture it looks backwards, but in fact the effect we wanted to create was to have the lighter side of the fabric down. So in that case this is the right side of the fabric, and so in your design when you put the fabric on, just again make sure that every step from now on, except for when we get to the backing, the right side is going to go facing the batting or facing the fabric that's already there. So you're going to put that first one down in the upper left, and then we're going to go ahead and put the second one down along it. And we're going to do that in the lower right-hand side. And we can do that because we're going to sew these two seams here, and we're going to save ourselves on taking the hoop out of the machine a couple times because these can be sewn together because the seams don't overlap. And the last thing I want to tell you is just make sure that these triangles are centered pretty well on the square. Before we put it back in the machine, it's a good idea to tape them in place with some embroidery perfection tape. Now you want to tape the exposed sides of the square, so those would be the upper right hand and the lower left hand edge of the square, and those are the two outer pieces of tape you see in the picture. And then you want to tape the triangles in place so they don't move. You might be tempted to put that tape out along the edge, on the long edge of the triangles, but if you do that, there's a chance you'll stitch through it, and you definitely don't want to stitch through the embroidery perfection tape. So go ahead and put it where we've shown it here on the picture, and then once you've got it all nice and taped down, load the hoop back in the machine. And we're going to go ahead and stitch color choice number 2, the deep pink, which will stitch down the upper left triangle. And you can go ahead and continue and stitch the third color choice, which will be the spring green, to stitch the lower right triangle. Now, you're going to want to flip these over, take the tape off and flip them over, and then press the seams open like you see in the picture here. Some machines you can do that while it's still loaded, while the hoop is still loaded in the machine. Other machines, it might be less awkward if you take the hoop out of the machine and go ahead and press and then put it back. Okay. Now then I also recommend once you've got these seams pressed open, you put a small piece of tape out at the very corner of the triangle, at the far corners of the triangle, just to hold them over so that they stay there and don't flap around. So once you do that, reload it back in the machine. One thing I'll warn you at this point is that if you have a machine like a multi-needle machine where the hoops can go in right side up and upside down, just make sure you keep track of your hoop orientation. You don't want to accidentally put the hoop in flipped 180 degrees and have it not all line up. And then the next thing we want to do is put down our next two pieces of fabric. So we're going to go ahead, once we've flipped those two out of the way, we're going to put down our next two pieces of fabric, which are basically the opposite sides of the triangles. And so you're going to put one in the upper right, one in the upper left. You're going to tape them like we did as before, but this time you don't have to tape the square because the square is being held down by the seams we just put in. So just tape those two triangles in place like we did before, kind of in the center of the block there, and load the hoop back in the machine, and we're going to go ahead and stitch color choice number 4 and color choice number 5, and those are going to stitch the upper right-hand triangle and the lower left-hand triangle into place. Once it's stitched, you're going to remove the hoop from the machine and fold the remaining two triangles out and press all the seams. And so it's going to look something like this when you've got it all completed. So again, and obviously you're going to take the tape off before you fold the triangles out. I'm sure I didn't have to tell you that, but it says here in the instructions, so I just wanted to repeat it for you. Next, we're going to flip the hoop upside down, and you're going to see our stitching on the back here. And once you see that, you're going to then take your backing fabric and you're going to place it over the stitching lines, and you want to get it nice and centered over the stitching lines. And you can see it doesn't look centered in this picture, but in fact it is centered in this hoop. This particular hoop, the center of the needle is actually off-center with respect to the edges of the hoop, so it really is centered here. You want to tape it down over the back, and this time you want the right side facing up again, so the right side's going to be facing you, and you want to stretch this as tight as you can. Don't go crazy, getting it super tight. Don't have any wrinkles in it, but you don't want it loose and flapping around in there either. So you're going to use 4 pieces of embroidery perfection tape to tape the backing fabric on here, and then you're going to load the hoop back. Oh, before you load the hoop, tape the top down. So good idea to tape the top triangles back in place. And then you're going to reload the hoop into the machine. And what's going to happen is we're going to then stitch the next two colors. We're going to stitch the long stitches around the edge of the square. And I just remembered that I forgot to tell you how to do that step in the software. I didn't put those stitches in. So we're going to have to go back and run through it real quickly one more time to show you how to put those stitches in. And lastly, you're going to stitch the quilting stitches all around the edge. So what's going to happen is you're going to stitch a line of what are really basting stitches all around the edge of the hoop. So that's going to create a guide for us to trim the design. And I just realized, as I said, I forgot to show you that. So we'll go back and do that. And you're going to stitch the design and remove the hoop from the machine. And then you're going to remove the hoop from the block from the hoop itself. You're going to trim the block 1/4 inch away from those stitching lines. You're going to pick those stitches out because they're not part of the final block. And when you do that, your block is going to be done. And here I'm saying thanks for attending, but I don't want to say that yet because we're going to go back and finish up the software because I, again, forgot to tell you part of it. So, but I just want to say that in a few days, at the most, you should see this webinar online. It should be available from the projects link that's in the software, and you can also get it on the Learning and Resource Center. We're in the webinar section. And again, I hope that you'll use the video along with the printed instructions to recreate this project at home. And I just wanted to let you know that Rita has included a bonus for you with those printed instructions above and beyond what we've gone through today, and that is a section on how to actually piece your whole quilt together using a quilt-as-you-go technique with sashing strips, and she's got some pretty cool ideas on how to do that. So that's a little bonus section that'll be on the end of it. So I'm going to go ahead and end the slideshow, and I'm going to bring my decorative quilter back up. And luckily, our block is still here. I'm going to step backwards, and I can do that because I want you to remember that undo is your friend in the software. So we're going to come in here, and we're going to do the thing that I forgot to do, and that is to create those basting stitches to go around. So to do that, we're going to click on our run stitch icon one more time, and we're going to select color number 6. So that's going to be this Cape green color here. So we're going to right-click on color number 6. And what we're going to do is we are going to just run a basting stitch all the way around the edge of this square. And we're going to, remember we have snap to grid turned on. We're going to start right here, and this is actually going to be point C. So remember we got A, B, C, and D. So you're going to start over here in point C. We're going to start here in the center. Now I know the natural tendency is to start here in the corner, but it's a good idea when you do something like this to start in the center of the block and not in the corner. So I'm just going to click somewhere close to here, and you can see it's going to snap. I've got the snap already turned on here. And so we're going to come down here, and we're going to click down here to create our second line. And then we're going to come over here to this point and click. We're going to come up here to this point and click. We're going to come over here to this point and click. And we're going to come finally down here where we started, click, and then we're going to right-click to finish it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select that, and we are going to change the stitch length to 6 millimeters and click Apply. So this step actually went in before we added the embellishment. So I should have actually done it before we added the embellishment, but you get the idea. That's how simple it is to do. So you're just going to click here, click here, click here, click here, click here with the run stitch, and you're going to create that. Just don't forget to change it to 6 millimeters. It'll just make it a lot easier to pick the stitches out. So again, I want to thank everybody for attending. Again, I'm going to show you where to get the project. It's right here in My Floriani Today. If that's not showing, you can always come up here in the software and click My Floriani Today. And the project is right here. Let's go through one more time how to download it. You would click right here, anywhere on that picture. It's going to come up here and say Install the Current Month Project. And just click right there, and Windows is going to walk you through this whole dialog. Again, you want to make sure that you run it and not save it. And it doesn't hurt to save it over the top if you've already saved it once. And so I'm just going to click yes to go ahead and do it. It's going to come up and say OK, and it's going to install the Current Month Project again right over the top of it. So I want to thank everybody again for attending, and I'm going to turn it back over to DJ.
All right, Mark, can you hear me?
Yes.
All righty. Thank you very much, Mark, for this wonderful webinar. And like you stated, this webinar has been recorded, and we will make it available for everyone to view. And this will be posted on our Learning and Resource Center. Many of you already know where that is. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to click on that My Floriani Today page and contact tech support if you need help finding that link. You can just fill out a support ticket and they'll help you find it. And thank you again, Mark, for this webinar, and it was very, very helpful. And we've got a lot of really good comments going so far, and we look forward to doing the next one. And that's it for tonight, and we hope that you enjoyed tonight's webinar.